Hello and welcome everybody to Plat Chat episode 34.
What?
Is that it?
I messed up. I'm sorry, but I don't want to start again. We can just roll with this. Welcome to Plat Chat episode 34. I tell you,
Johnny nearly choked on his drink. He was so surprised.
I'm not going to be including this on my eventual hosting talent role.
You know what Johnny's picture looked like? Rich Campbell tweeted a few weeks ago that he got out of the shower and then he walked in front of his streaming setup and the cam's blue light was on and he just like had this like stare down, but it wasn't live.
Yeah,
Johnny just had that type of face. Well, I mean, you may actually do that one day.
I've done similar things as well. I've got a mirror set up in my streaming room, and I'm always worried about it as well because when I walk along in the corridor, who knows what angles are visible. I'm concerned.
You have that little doll in the background just plotting against victims. That's how you're gonna dress them up before you take them out.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear their skin. That's the deal.
All right, well. Quick little reminder to everybody. Sorry for eating at the same time as well. I know some of you hate that, but...
Bren, you look so homeless. Sorry, just to point that out.
What is going on with you?
You've got a little beard going, and you're wearing a white wife beater and eating just bread? As far
Maybe
as
I should have introed it as Tony Baloney from Brooklyn, New York.
Baloney.
Tony Baloney. I got the finest baloney this side of New York.
I know how bored Bren has been like every week. Like it evolved to late night Valorant to late night GeoGuessr, and then last night I was like, oh, let's see what Bren's doing. I turned on his stream and he's playing Warwick. His team is down 30-8 in terms of kills, and he's just spawning in, buying an item, and just inting it mid. And he's like, I'm gonna ult the first person I see, and he just jumps in and just gets blown up.
Yeah, I like playing League because I don't care about my rank, so I go into it and I just feed relentlessly. And I got 2 games ago I got reported by all 9 people in the game.
How is that possible?
Because I was just inting over and over and over again. But anyway, I wanted to bring up this point. People have been asking for merch, but the question is, we don't know what merch you want. So let us know in the comments what kind of merch you want to see. Mugs, t-shirts, fanny
I really
packs.
want your wife beater. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Plushies.
What?
We need Bren
like a little Matt Morello plushie.
No. We need Bren
smaller
body
than
pillows.
the other plushies.
Bren body pillows.
Would you buy a Bren body pillow? This is not a question for you guys. This is a question for the chat. But they're not going to be responding, obviously.
Well, you can't respond.
Anyway, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this week of Overwatch.
What's happening? What did I miss?
We saw the qualifiers that they've wrapped up. The games are finished.
Also, I think we need to work on this in the future when we do tournaments. It's not a qualifier. Everybody qualifies, so there's nobody's qualifying for anything. Nobody qualified for anything.
Technically, one team is not qualifying. The 12th-13th match is not a money match, so
who gives a shit about them? I mean, they just suck. I mean, that's not our problem. But nobody qualified.
Defiant make a run for it into the finals.
They're fighting for vacation, dude.
Yeah, they're fighting for an extra few days off.
Yeah,
maybe it'll be a draw.
The qualifiers ended.
Yeah,
and we've got our brackets. We're gonna get into the Asian brackets a little bit later, but. What do we make of the matches then? Were there any standout surprises? I know that we saw Dallas get boomed.
It was a rough week of matches.
It was a lot of 3-0s.
Yeah, it was pretty anticlimactic. Like, we had the Dallas-Paris matchup that I think we all expected to be super hype.
Mate,
it was the San Francisco-Atlanta matchup was pretty one-sided. Like, it was pretty wacky.
That Dallas game, I was up all night watching the Asian games, went to bed, woke up expecting it to be in the middle of Dallas, Paris, and both of the first 2 matches were over.
Yeah. It was actually a dreadful series of games this week because Seoul Dynasty looked dreadful again. London Spitfire looked dreadful again. The Vancouver Titans didn't actually put up a fight in their matches, even though we thought that was possible against the Houston Outlaws. But fair enough that they're a brand new team. They got excuses. But Justice, dreadful.
Yeah.
The only good match, weirdly.
No, there were 2.
Boston Gladiators.
Okay. Look, yeah. I think this week's weird because all the matches you thought would be close were blowouts, and then all the matches you were just like, okay, can we fast forward it to get to the next match? Went on forever. They just dragged out. Like they
that Toronto Valiant.
Yeah, it just went on forever. The Boston Gladiators are just fucking odd.
I liked that game watching.
It was a good game.
Mainly because I predicted Boston.
Well, yeah, you dressed as a cat.
Actually, Cat Bren.
It
was a coin flip.
Yeah, I did. I flipped a coin and it landed on Boston. And then at the time when I was recording that, I was like, fuck. Well, that's a miss. But
did you actually go 7-7? Oh, out of 7?
No, I went 6 out of 7.
Boston wins the series though, only winning control. Like it's such an odd series. I think actually the series says more. Well, I think for Boston, it's like, hey, look what happens when we don't have to play May, and we're horrible at it. And I thought Punk played very well in his first game. I think though, like we all could have said, like I don't think the Boston players are like crap. I don't think they have bad players. I think they don't have enough flexibility in DPS to cover themselves every week, and this just happened to be one week where they didn't have to make mind-bending adjustments to be able to do it. I think it says more about the Gladiators though losing this series than it does for Boston. Like I think the Gladiators is the team we expected to be, amongst the best in NA, and to lose this match kind of tough.
Yeah, they looked a bit
Mirror
boomed.
and sorry, Johnny, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I think they looked a bit boomed, and I don't like saying that because like Gladiators can't really refute that argument and be like, no, we weren't boomed, in fact, because it's like, but it seemed like they were boomed, and like OG had a few missed shatters on like Nepal to start things off, and then it's a downward spiral. You're like, oh, we're going to dominate Boston, and then you end up losing team fights, you end up losing maps, and it just goes down from there. Yeah. They played Mercy on point B of Hanamura for like the entire attack, and I'm like,
I don't get it.
This is not gonna work.
I'm not even sure it's that. I think it's almost as simple as what I think Bren was going to say is like, I thought everybody played pretty well for the Glads. I don't think there was like one extreme weakness outside of I still don't feel confident in their second DPS outside of Birdring. I think Birdring played good.
Game, though, I think
Birdring didn't play bad.
All the departments were kind of lacking. I wouldn't want to blame it on single DPS,
I mean, look,
they tanks, supports, everyone pretty much.
They lost like what, one control in the final point. They won one map and then they drew another one. Then they lost 2 controls barely at the end. Like it's not like they completely flopped the series.
Yeah, but I would have expected OG in space to just run over.
Exactly. Like you do flop a series if you're close against Boston and you end up losing, right? I think the Gladiators came into it vastly underestimating the Boston
Probably,
who had improved. They ran Paintbrush on first map, who made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I don't like pinning things on one person, but Paintbrush's Lucio in the first round, I mean, they totally C9, and I think that's his job to get on the point. And then in the second round, I think he got picked off really early on, and just in the final fight, ended up losing that one. Both rounds ended up going 99-99, and they lose it. And I think at that point, the mental boom sets in, and they're like, oh, shit, we fielded Paintbrush because it's Boston, lol, and now we're losing. I think Boston, OG played a really, really good Winston, but when it came to the Reinhardt fusions, was in his element and ended up getting the better end of it.
It sucks for Boston now. People are going to play their real lineup against him. The only time these subs will see the light of day is the Vancouver Titans now.
True.
I did see some comments online about people saying, I put out a tweet recently saying it's quite funny how the only one who predicted the Boston match right was doing it via coin flips, right? I said, oh, what does that say? I can't remember what the exact wording was.
Is this a segue towards your hero pool rant of the week?
Yes, yeah, but we're not even actually going to talk about that because there's no hero pools this weekend. But I will say, that wasn't the overall point. I mean, the overall point of it was, it's harder to predict matches and the outcomes of them because of hero pools, because you never know when a team's like that's going to show up. But I wasn't saying that Boston only won because of hero pools. Boston definitely looked very improved, but people were taking that tweet out of context And I'm taking it in the context that I was basically putting down Boston's achievements, but I think Boston looked a lot better with Punk in the lineup. And sometimes you need just that one player to come in to change up the mentality of everyone else around them.
Yeah. I said this on the broadcast as well. Or actually, maybe I didn't. But I tried out with Punk once, and he was one of those off tanks that really just made you feel comfortable as a main tank. Like you didn't have to worry about where your off tank teammate was. Like he was solid. Sort of felt like an Australian Nevix. And I told Costa that because like I'm cheering for Nevix, he's cheering for Punk, and it's like they're pretty similar. Like they make you feel comfortable. So it certainly looked like Fusions just had more confidence, and like they had some nice combos with like accretion and shatters, and like they just looked like they were on the same page and made a world of difference. So
why'd you guys have to try out for an open division team?
Well, we're trying to bring Punk into Casters to Masters because Matt and Plat.
Yo, Punk, if you want to join Casters to Masters, I just did my placement, so I'm 3,300 on tank.
Oh really?
Very nice. We all can't be as fortunate as Josh and tank everybody else's SR and then just get people to boost them back up the other way.
I lost give it a net total. I went negative 11 playing with Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I also went negative 11 that day.
Josh
How was that possible?
Actively lied to me.
I will say though, when Bren plays with Josh, and then he's like, "Oh, I went 11 games down." He doesn't acknowledge the part where he tilts 5 games in and then just mutes his mic and plays Wrecking Ball and then just rolls in.
I've got a
he
new
doesn't
strat.
acknowledge those 6 games. He just acknowledges the first 4.
I have a new strat with Josh. When I think he's throwing for content, or when I think his stream is making him pick characters, heroes that he can't play, then I also start experimenting a little bit. And I experimented in the form of my Echo play.
Oh my god. I heard you say, what did you not know about Echo that you were playing it and you were just like,
he thought the sticky bombs were part of her default primary fire.
Yeah.
He didn't realize the sticky bombs were an extra ability.
Yeah, I didn't realize until I played her.
How? There's a little sticky bomb icon in the bottom right.
Because I'd never played her.
But you can see it when you spectate in the
I
audience.
am looking, bro, you think I'm looking at your UI when I'm casting?
Yes, kind of.
Are you looking at the screen when you're casting?
It's barely. I'm going off sound cues. I'm in the zone.
Johnny's so disappointed. He's like,
I will bring a bunch of Echo. It's super easy to carry in Diamond. I love it. Here's one thing I did not know, and I found out the other day.
Yeah.
But it makes a ton of sense in hindsight, but I didn't think about it. When you duplicate someone, that hero or like that player can't swap hero until the duplication is out. So technically, if you're fighting on point B of an assault map, you could duplicate into a shitty hero so they can't swap to like a Wrecking Ball or a Tracer or something. Big brain strats.
That's
big brain, except you're on a shitty hero.
You're like, oh, it's a Roadhog. Let's duplicate to the Roadhog so they can't swap off Roadhog. We win. Let's go.
Yeah. Next time you're in an overtime push, you're like, okay, the main tank's going to switch over to Wrecking Ball here.
I like how... I think this basically sums up what we thought of this week's matches. We talked about Boston Gladiators, and then we just shot the shit for a bit. I mean, that's
well, there was one big thing that did happen. Chips are sort of light of day. They brought him off the bench, and he played a map. I mean, quite astounding stuff. I will say I've also won my bet against Custer. He has not paid it up.
He hasn't paid yet? He's not good for his bets. I've got an active bet with him as well.
Yeah, I'll have a talk with the healing officer about that. I will say it was, I think the funniest part was the thing that Josh brought up where Jane went on that crazy rant at the beginning of the season where like Chipsa shouldn't have been signed because of tier 2 people. And then Chipsa literally plays against people who just came in from tier 2. Obviously he's playing with like Carpe and Sato and whatnot. So you have to take some of that into consideration, but still they're able to win. I think it's pretty funny. Like,
okay.
So
I have a question, and all 3 of you now have a decision ahead of you. Okay, it's sort of like when you're playing Skyrim and you get to choose like a faction. Like either you pick like the Northerners, you know, like the OGs, or you can pick like the Red Empire and like follow through with the Empire.
Okay,
so my question is, did Chipsa actually play that well? And now you have an option. Do you side with the memes or do you side with reality?
But
Which side do you take?
But okay, so this is like does Chipsa need does he need to be like the carry when he's in the lineup? Like, no, he just needs to play Doomfist and not fuck up so much that they lose the game because of it. That's really it. Like, he has a good Doomfist, just put him in when you want to play Doomfist on occasion.
Oh, mate, he was straight poo-poo. He was poo.
Go on.
I want to see the memes, dude. I want to see the views, bro. Give me the views.
He was taking every resource under the sun. He had bubbles from his Zarya. He had nano boosts every single time they were coming out. His entire team played around him, and he still managed to hard feed.
When Michael Jordan's on the court, get him the ball, dude. When Michael Jordan's on the court, get him the ball.
Is on the court.
I agree with Matt for once.
Yeah. When Michael Jordan's on the court, get on the ball.
I think they invested so many resources into Chipsa that Titans had no choice but to invest all their resources into shutting him down. And that gave them the win.
No. A better analogy would be when a small crippled boy is on the court, for God's sake, help him, otherwise he's going to fall over. That's what it felt like watching that match. Because Carpe just absolutely shredding people and then desperately trying to stop Chipsa feeding and then still throwing himself in the water anyway.
Yeah,
he looked really nervous, actually. I don't know whether any of you
probably was.
This, but I thought he looked nervous. Like the nerves of the match actually hit him. He was really shaky with his combos compared to what I expected.
What player have we had that much hype for to see him play this season? I mean, it's been like the most hype thing that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, some people can perform on the stage.
15K viewers.
Yeah.
Some people can perform on the stage, and some people just crumble. Me, I'm a performer.
True.
When I get on the stage, I perform. Do you remember when you guys thought I was taking Addy on their talent takedown? Because I popped off so much.
Yeah. Achilles said you were seeing the future. He was.
I think it was Achilles who was convinced that I was taking Adderall for the talent takedown because I fucked him so badly.
Did you?
You don't remember that?
No. Well, of course I saw it. Yes.
I think Johnny was asking about your drug abuse.
No,
Johnny, he just smoked G Fuel. Just in a line of G Fuel.
That was a poor strategy for the talent takedown that we employed. But I love how you say, whenever you get on stage, you perform. Do we forget the 1v1 Widowmaker things you had that you just got boomed?
I had good performances, didn't I?
I mean, you were there. You were physically there.
I brought it to the pros, and that's what matters. I was repping the Plats, and I brought it to the pros.
Do you think that Chipsa would be able to play against any team that isn't Vancouver?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I feel like, actually, if there was a Doomfist meta, they've said, like the coaches have said, that they've tried him in Doomfist metas. Like, they have been open to running it.
He could play against the Justice if the Justice don't keep Janu and Stitch. He could play against the Justice.
What if they have 5 men and only 1 DPS? That's the other team that he could play against. Yeah, I don't think
you have to pick another team.
I don't think he cut it. I don't think that he was. I don't think he was better than
Yeah, but if you're Philly and you want to give some players a break, maybe because let's say they go far in the tournament, they get some extra wins. They're 11-1. You can probably play them some games and sit some people.
Yeah, of course. If you want to take a break.
What if you frame the question this way? Who is a better Doomfist than Chipsa?
On their team.
Like, actually, probably Ivy. It depends how nervous Chipsa was in that match, because he really did look like he was underperforming. And I know that sounds bonkers when you've only seen him ever play 1 match. Like, how can you know that a guy is underperforming? But his combos were just all over the place, and he was making mistakes like not making sure that his punch is off cooldown when he goes off the map. Like, I know that that's a meme that he fell off the map, but actually the guy was like waiting to use his punch to get out, right? And he just mistimes it and falls off the map. Like, it really did seem like he was just
I don't think it's a big
maybe he plays better
either
in the next match.
Look, if the fans like it, I'm about it. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too in depth. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise that like he actually was nervous, because he actually had something on the line, you know? It was literally the entire meme reputation.
The whole fucking chat started popping off, dude. They didn't they didn't care that even Philly was playing. They were just like, want to see Chips to play.
You see how rabid everybody was that Philadelphia Fusion took him out, and suddenly the video was just getting mad dislikes, like 3,500 dislikes.
Oh yeah,
it impacts,
but that's
it impacts the discoverability of the league. Like, they're actually like like no sarcasm. They're actually hurting the league by disliking all the videos.
Is that true though? Because I thought that YouTube dislikes only contributed to engagement, and likes and dislikes both were positive.
I think it's a
I'm gonna be honest with
ratio.
you. I have no idea.
Yeah, I
But
thought
I'm
that it was
just-
only done on engagement, but I don't know.
It's sort of like the idea of like warning of something that doesn't exist, just you stay away from it.
Yeah,
Like it's like, yeah, you shouldn't dislike videos because it makes it worse. Like even if that's false, like even if that's like a myth, like it doesn't affect it at all, probably shouldn't dislike the video still. So it's sort of like,
I mean,
yeah,
that's-
porcupines can shoot their quills. It's like,
huh?
it's like,
What?
yeah, but it's like you tell someone that and they'll stay away. You're like it's a lie, right? But they'll stay
Oh,
away
right.
from it. But they'll stay away from them.
Like
so
you've made something seem more scary.
yeah, so I'm like, I'm
Johnny-
lying about the dislikes so they stay away from it.
I see.
Because it's
I
better
see.
no dislikes than any dislikes.
A man of the people.
I don't know what the fuck
Apparently-
I'm talking about.
No, I
Apparently
see what you're
just from-
talking about.
Apparently, just from a cursory Google, dislikes actually positively affect the engagement rate.
Positively.
Yeah, they're more likely to make something trend just because it gets more engagement.
All right, sub him out.
I
Just
guess that
because,
kind of
like,
makes sense, though,
YouTube,
right?
Like YouTube still wants to promote stuff that people care about, even if they hate it. Like some of the most disliked, I mean, obviously the most disliked things of all time are at the top because they would have to attract people in order for them to dislike it. So that's maybe putting the cart before the horse. But apparently, it only positively affects the algorithm.
Well, let's try and get this episode to be the most positively liked on YouTube.
Yeah, I think
we
we're
can give
close
it-
to like 500k subs or something.
No, we are not. The league hit 500k
Yeah, the league
subs.
is, yeah.
Plat chat is at 22,000. We're
We should
almost
reverse
there.
it.
Pretty
We
close.
should-
Pretty close.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
reverse it.
We'll get there though. If we keep making content like this, where we go off on tangents and we tell people we're talking about
Oh.
Overwatch, but we talk about porcupines in there, whatever.
Speaking of.
you just said, we'll be good.
If
I'm curious.
if we hit 500,000 subscribers, I will lick Brent's armpit.
Oh, man. Whoa, bro!
Why
Nobody
the
even
heck? No one
asked.
You
wants
need
to
my
see
permission
that.
to do that.
Yeah, who has to see that?
It's
Yeah.
not happening.
I wouldn't
but-
give you permission for that.
Yeah.
See, that's the point. But now people will subscribe anyway.
I was in
so
bed.
we've.
I was
It's
in
like
bed this morning, and I just had my arms up at the back of my head. The cat comes over, and he's being really loving, and it's just like nuzzling me and stuff. It goes over to my armpit. This is really weird. Cat never does this. Goes over to my armpit and starts like nuzzling my armpit. I'm like, all right, like why are you taking so much interest there? And it like nuzzles me a bit more, and it's like been there for like 20 seconds. It's really, really checking out my armpit for some reason.
Yeah.
And then he just looks at me and goes like, just ran away. What the fuck? I get roasted by the cat as soon as I wake up this morning. The most stick face I've ever seen. This cat licks its own butthole on the regular and occasionally makes that face, but never as badly. I didn't smell. I was showered last night, like late last night. It just ruined me.
What are we talking about?
This is devolved into chaos.
I was gonna
rather
say,
quickly.
I was gonna ask, would people? I was basically gonna tease the my video content idea for Plat Chat.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
go,
get the
yeah.
interactions and see whether people like it. I teased it a little bit on my stream. But theoretically, if I was to do a one-on-one interview show with pro players, other people, anyone in the Overwatch scene, even outside the Overwatch scene, where I talked about their intro into esports, general topics going around, the news, and we ended with a GeoGuessr face-off where there is a scoreboard that's collected a bit like Top Gear's
Yes.
reasonably star in a reasonably priced car. You get a GeoGuessr scoreboard at the end, so we keep track of everybody's score. Would that be something that you guys are interested in?
Yeah, and then you should hold a little tournament at the end of the year with the top 10 people.
top
and make it
GeoGuessr players, yes.
The Bren GeoGuessr Invitational.
I'm down for
that
it.
Sounds good.
We would probably draw in more viewers than something.
Then head to head.
Wow, that's setting high standards there for the content.
I want to see Bren host a series of Jeopardy.
I don't. I would mess it up.
You know
I
what I
wouldn't be
want to...
confident. Anyway,
You know what I
let's talk
wanna-
about the Asian games that actually occurred. 'Cause
yeah, let's talk about them.
let's actually talk about Overwatch because we haven't talked
Yeah.
about any Overwatch. Some of the Asian matches happened. We briefly touched over some of the NA ones, but in my mind, there weren't really that many good Asian matches either.
I think there was
London got
Two.
pooed on. Seoul got
Yeah.
pooed on again.
Yeah.
So, just to talk about Seoul for a second, because London were just an abject disappointment this week,
Right.
and whatever, right? Like some people had some expectations for them, but Seoul are so annoying because they give you some hope and then they rip it away again. And this week was so tragic for them to get utterly boomed by
the
Chengdu.
Hunters, dude. Like, come on. And then, I mean, the Hunters play good against the Charge later in the week, but
we look down on the Hunters because we think in our minds that they are the weakest team in APAC. But at this point, I think the Hunters could beat maybe half the teams in the NA side.
But I will say the Hunters are the weakest team in APAC. They are. But I think the
are
difference
they?
between but I think the difference between the Hunters, who else would you? Oh well, London is
Maybe
probably
London
worse.
London,
Maybe after this
Seoul.
week.
And Seoul on a bad week. I mean,
Yeah,
clearly by this result,
really.
you see that Seoul on a bad week.
But I think
is
though
worse.
the thing with Chengdu that doesn't make them like some of the other bottom teams that we've seen in other regions and just kind of divisions in the league in the past is like Chengdu has like sick talent. Like some of their players are actually like proper fucking sick. Like some of these other teams just they suck because they don't have the talent. Like Chengdu is not that. Chengdu kind of they play like really odd shit for whatever
Jinmu's
reason.
Sombra is a real difference maker for Chengdu.
Okay, Jinmu's Sombra is not good, but Jinmu's got some heroes where he's amazing, like the Pharah.
Genji, Doomfist.
We don't see those heroes often, though.
Maybe like a bit of the Hanzo as well.
Eamon's playing more tanks now. He's been playing some Winston as of late.
It's been expanding the hero pool. I can respect
His
it.
Winston looks okay as well.
No, it doesn't look like horrible.
Right. I don't even want to I want to just dig into Seoul for a sec though, because what the hell was this game against Chengdu?
Okay.
What's Johnny? What's tickling you?
No, I was gonna save my load for the bracket, but I guess we could
Save
do it
my
now.
load.
Save your load.
Not everything in this world is sexual, you cretins.
I mean,
That's about.
that's a euphemism through and through, I think.
Yeah,
No.
I mean,
What's wrong with you?
Go on, Johnny, spill your load on me.
No. 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 Frick all y'all.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So answer me these questions then, if you can, chat. Since Bren was asking you questions earlier on in the show and we got no response. Why run Gesture for the first two maps on Reinhardt and then add in Marvel for map 3 when you go over to playing Winston? Why would you ever do this? Why would you run
it's
Michelle?
so weird.
I
Why
don't
would you
think
run Michelle this week to run mostly Sigma and Zarya, and then a little bit of the Diva on the side? Why not run Marvel when you want to play the Sigma?
What happened to Michelle that like he went from he basically he finished one behind I think Fitz in final blows of the team last year. What happened between then and now that he's like completely like out of the lineup all the time almost?
Maybe a hot take, but I never thought that Michelle was that good in the first place.
Yeah, I actually wasn't high. on
I
Michelle.
didn't think he was like incredible, but I didn't think he was bad to the point that you would put Marvel on Diva in.
Yeah, it was mediocre.
Yeah.
I think maybe.
But the entire strategy, like, I feel like Seoul, someone in my chat when I was watching this game said, Seoul seems like they're coached by a random number generator. And I just agree with them. The Seoul coaching this year seems like it's all over the place.
It reminds me of season 1 Seoul coaching when they had 6 coaches and it was too many cooks.
Oh yeah, they had like 14 coaches.
It's all over. It feels all over the place.
Winston.
This is why I talk so highly about KGG because I think he was legitimately one of the big reasons why Seoul were actually quite interesting last year. I know a lot of people had opinions about the 2 different lineups. Remember, they were playing like 2 different lineups per series. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but overall, I think he took in a lot of rookies and a lot of players with potential.
Yeah,
and actually created a pretty sick team out of that environment. And now I think we're seeing some of those players actually struggle without KGG coaching them.
This is why, like, I've seen like with the rumors of like Hacksaw either here or New York or something like that. I almost don't want to see him go to Seoul because they're just gonna ruin it. Like they're not gonna play him all the time. It's gonna be super odd. Like maybe we see Slime for the playoffs when that comes in. Yeah. But
I'm actually hoping that Slime can give this team a little bit of leadership when they play Reinhardt Lucio compositions, because they need it. This team looks totally lost whenever they play something that isn't Winston Tracer, which they actually did beat the Shanghai Dragons on. So all of the people that say Solar one tricks that can only play double shield, they have actually looked good when they played Winston Tracer dive as well. But outside of those two comps, it's game over for Seoul Dynasty. They cannot play anything. They're all over the place. They don't understand the meta. Profit can't play the Echo, so they don't do like full dive really ever now that Echo's in the game. It's just been poo-poo.
Yeah. So I actually asked one of the people who used to work with the Vancouver Titans, and I won't name drop him because I didn't ask if I could. So, but you know who you are, and I appreciate it. But anyway, I asked actually how much impact Slime had on the shot calling. And he said that Slime actually just tracked ultimates, and it was mostly Haxal and Bumper who did most of the shot calling. And so that doesn't really inspire confidence in me believing Slime can just turn this thing around. What I do hope happens is that Slime steers up the backline with Bedosian. Because I think at some points throughout the season, Toby and Bedosian hasn't really been able to swap to the proper support compositions anyway, for a variety of reasons. But I hope that Slime can come in and sort of gel with Bedosian to make sure that at least the backline is solid, and then you can build a team from the back, and then sort of support Gesture when he's struggling, or support Marvel, whatever he's doing, like support some of these tanks that are trying to figure things out. If you at least get a proper backline going, I think that's a good foundation and a good building block for like the rest of the team. So I hope Slime can provide that.
I don't know what it is, like, because you look at their roster and you're like, okay, this organization has done everything they can to put a winning team out there. Like, they have talent all over the place, but like you never really feel like they're like empowering like some of their star players to like play well or like take over. Like, you know, when like you watch Philly and you can clearly tell they're just pumping everything into Carpe just so he like really pops off and plays well. They're like they support him, right? Like who is Soul supporting when they're playing? Like it doesn't seem like they're doing it to profit. It doesn't seem like it fits the tanks. It doesn't seem like they're really trying to put resources to anything.
It's a good point. I don't know who their core player really is at the moment.
Sometimes,
well, it has to be Profit, and
but
that's
it doesn't
why
seem like it at all.
Yeah, and I think that Profit, I mean, this is just an hypothesis, and I don't claim this is true, but that might be like they have a problem sustaining Profit because the tank line is struggling so much, and so the supports feel obligated to put more resources into the front line, and Profit doesn't really get the room and space required to then pop off. That could be an hypothesis. I can't even talk, dude.
I think we might be simplifying it too much.
Maybe.
I didn't mean to put emphasis on the word simp then, but I did anyway. I think it's if we are looking at this team and we cannot find the crux of the issue, then it is most likely the fact is that there are multiple problems that have yet to be solved. And it could be anything. My knowledge of teams when stuff goes wrong like this, I'm not saying this is the case of Seoul because I haven't done any digging whatsoever. I haven't spoken to anybody in Seoul. But in the past, when teams have looked like this, it's often just been multiple issues, like internal strife between some members of the team, confidence issues. Maybe there's an issue where one of the coaches is not liked by the team. I don't want to start to use this opportunity to start spreading rumors.
In a flower shop.
A gesture buying a flower shop. But the main takeaway of this is not, there's some internal drama in the Seoul Dynasty. The main takeaway should be that there's probably multiple issues that have yet to be solved. And until they solve one of them, then it'll be easier to pin down what the rest of the problems
That's only ever been the case in the past when a team has totally collapsed. They don't totally collapse. They pivot from insane to garbage. I don't think we've ever seen a team like this. And people bring up the London Spitfire before, but they didn't go week to week being like the best team
last
in the league.
Year we didn't have hero pools.
Yeah, I know. That does make it different. But there's... It's so strange. It really has, I don't think, ever been seen in Overwatch League that a team goes from beating the top team, beating Shanghai, to losing to the worst team in the region 3-0. And looks like they're just going to continue to ping pong every week. There's something so odd.
But don't you think that has to do with the compositions, though?
But how can such good players not
be able to
understand.
adapt.
Yeah, not be able to adapt at all.
Like,
It's very odd. Doesn't that just point completely to a coaching failure?
Are we being blinded by the fact that it's Seoul Dynasty when we're trying to look at this? Because they're not the only team that ping pong between being a contender for the top spot and also just flopping and failing to a lot of lower teams.
Who did that?
else?
When Houston gets a good meta, I think they are almost toe to toe with a lot of teams.
They're not going to come out and beat Shanghai in a good meta though.
Yeah,
I think they would. I think they would compete. I think Houston could compete if we fell into a Doomfist Sombra meta. I think they could compete.
I'm not completely sure if I agree with the Muma gesture comparison.
I think though when you look at this team, like I'll say it again, and the players that are on it, they look almost like an all-star team put together. And it's like you can't tell me that they're not able to figure out one composition and play one composition amongst all of those players that can work for the week. Like they can only play two things.
I would say maybe they're shining with the bunker composition because there is less room for mistakes. While you're playing a dive composition, you're essentially put in charge of properly engaging and properly initiating, which with that type of aggressive play comes a lot of like unforced errors and bad positioning, etc. With bunker, you don't really get the same amount.
Which that's a great point, and that is why they can lose to a team like Chengdu, because Chengdu will play at such a fast pace, they'll make it chaotic, and that forces you to make decisions, and then in turn forces you to make mistakes, which is what they did.
Yeah, it's a weird situation for
That
Seoul.
being said, hyping up the future of the episode, I predicted Seoul win their first match. So
No, really? I mean, that just comes down to what meta you predicted, really, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
No hero pulls.
But yeah, I mean, we'll get to it when we actually get to it.
We'll get to that probably. We'll talk
I
about
predicted
it.
them to be 3-0'd, which I think just means I have a different read on what I think the meta's going to be.
Let's move over to some of the roster moves being made. We've already touched on Slime to Soul, so I don't think we should really talk about that too much. I think we briefly touched on that, but
I love Wallace and Gromit. Like Shaun the Sheep, fantastic. The humor of that is so good. I don't know whether Slime deliberately picked this out because he's a Shaun the Sheep fan, but
Do you think he'll make quickly? We didn't really talk about it, but do you think he'll make a big impact there?
I hope he does. I'm not sure he will.
I hope he does. I'm not 100% sure though.
after hearing Johnny doing his inside detective work and hearing that Slime didn't really supply much to the calling structure other than the alt tracking, I don't have as much faith, but who knows? Might be the difference maker. Like I said, Boston looked like almost a completely different team when Punk came in, so you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
The biggest trade, arguably, that's been made, or the biggest move, has to be Twilight going to Shock.
You think so?
Yes, because this is a team that... Because think about it. One of the weaknesses of Shock was that when they wanted to play different Anacomps, they would run Architect over Violet.
But you think, though, this move is more impactful than Architect moving over?
Not more impactful, I would say.
I don't
biggest
think so.
in terms of...
I don't think so.
I would say biggest in terms of how many waves it made, because everybody was wondering when these Titans players were going to be making their ways onto other teams. Yeah. And this is one of the puzzles unlocked.
I'm a little upset that they didn't go to teams that they could turn into not like turn into contenders. Obviously, you're going to go to the team that gives you the best chance to win. I get it. But like Twilight going to the Shock, and then he's like, oh, well, I hope to like get them a win or make them better. Like they can't really get much better. I mean, they rolled through last year. They're starting to roll through this year. It would have been cool to see him go to a team that's on the cusp and like one player away. And
what team would you
guy.
have liked him to go? I know we touched on it last week, but I can't even remember.
I mean,
like Dallas would be.
But there's no way in hell. I think Twilight.
Right.
I think out of all of the American teams, the Shock would be the only one that he would want to go to.
Or I would even like to see him go to Seoul with Slime and take that backline and go there together. Yeah. And I thought that would have been cool. I just think kind of
Slime and Twilight to Gladiators would have been sick.
To Gladiators,
Gladiators have already got
finished
pretty
backline.
good backline.
I still, yeah. I mean, I'm not talking shit about Big Goose and Shaz. I still think it'd be an upgrade though. Slime and Twilight over.
Well, yeah, it would be an upgrade, but it's.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to Matt's point of like, if
Or it would've been
if you're
cool-
gonna live in a utopian world, you might as well pick somewhere
Yeah.
where it'll make a big upgrade.
It would have been cool to see him go to, let's say, Paris before they got fielded, right? Like that would have been sick.
Sure.
Like to see him try and like, and then hey, when Xe and Sparkle come back, like that's like a nutty team.
Yeah. In
but,
reality, though, I think the only teams he would have considered would have been Asian teams, and I think I think probably the only reason he considered Shock is because Krusty has such a good reputation, and he probably talks to a lot of Korean players on that team. But
he actually
outside
could
of
have made a big upgrade to the Hangzhou Spark as well. They
You
could
think
have
over Bebe?
over Bebe. I think that it might seem a bit weird to keep talking about upgrades when we've been talking about Adora being the problem on the Spark for so long, or the lack of a second DPS. But Bebe is, I think, not quite. If the Spark are aiming to be a top 4 team like they were last year, which I think they should be aiming for, then Bebe is not a top 4 flex support in my opinion. So
I tell you what though, I think the Spark really solved their issue though. Like,
oh hell yeah, this move with Architect going over there.
I actually think like, and obviously we don't know where Hacksaw goes. We don't know how it comes out of that. But like a lot of times, like we see a move during the middle of the season that potentially like turns the tides of a team's future and just like the shape of a division. I think Architect is like that upgraded from going from Adora to Architect is an unreal upgrade.
Yeah. I now have so much faith in Hangzhou.
And Godsby was already playing like lights out. I mean, that guy, he has been, if there's one guy who's been like carrying a team that's going under the radar like this season, like Godsby's been nuts.
Hell yeah.
And can you imagine if we ever got like some kind of, even like a Doom Sombra dive with like Gushui, Architect, and Godsby, like, yeah, that's a nutty combination.
I will actually say this has been in the works, or not in the works, but this has been pondered upon for quite some time. Because I actually scrimmed Hangzhou before they were picked up to the Overwatch League, and Architect was actually on like that roster. And they played Tracer Dive with Gushui, I think. And that was the scariest shit I've ever faced in my life. Like, we absolutely got demolished. That was like the moment where I was like, too old for this shit. Like, I can't keep up. They were insane with Architect.
I'm interested on your guys' opinion on this. How far of, as an individual player, how far do you think Architect is away from, or is he better than like Hacksaw?
I think that he is better all round. I think that he makes a bigger addition to the Spark than Hacksaw would. I don't think that he's better on Hacksaw's best roles, but he's just so versatile.
An overall player.
Yeah, so versatile. And I think he'll work beautifully alongside Godsby because he won't be the focal player unless he's playing a hero that demands to be the focal player, but he'll still allow resources to go into Godsby and put up ridiculous plays. He can play low resource incredibly well.
Because I think the only thing you're worried about with Hangzhou is that other DPS slot. Like, I think Gushui and Rhea are perfectly fine in terms of tanks. Like, I think Rhea's good in the off-tank role. I like the IDK Bebe. I don't know. Maybe you could upgrade Affleck's support, but I think this is going to be a very strong team in the Asian region now.
Yeah. I'd just like to highlight Godsby's like sort of glow up, because I think last year he was like a jack of all trades, mercenary kind of guy, and obviously was GOATs, so not easy to shine. But I think that he's actually like improved a lot this season, and I don't think like he's getting appropriate props for that. Like, it's easy when a player improves and play really well that you're like, oh, they've always been this good, or oh, they've always been this bad. But I think it's really nice to recognize when players improve drastically, and I think Godsby has done that.
Do you think he has improved?
I think he has improved from last year. Yeah,
I thought he was nuts when we actually saw snipers last year. And last year he was. I know this might be a weird thing to look at, but the the fantasy leagues that pop up around.
I remember some of these, hearing some of these numbers.
bopped on fantasy because he was getting huge amounts of kills and limbs and not getting many deaths. Like statistically, when you combine all the shit together, which is how the fantasy leagues work, Godsby was #1 in the league. Yeah. He was absolutely farming.
Was that only with Zarya or other heroes?
No, that was with like other heroes as well. It was with the Widowmaker and the Hanzo that he was playing in
It was kind of it was like a combination of a bunch of stats. He was like the most, like if you were to go by that, he was like the most impactful player in the league in terms of like teams winning and losing, etc.
I just feel like his reputation stepped up a bit. Like it stepped up from like good player to like great player, could clutch out.
What I'm excited to see now though is he's been playing lights out, and you know, with Adora, who he has moments but is nowhere near the player of Architect. Now the other team has to worry about Architect as well as Gushue. Like this gives Godsby more space to operate and do his thing. Like we could even see him start to play better. Even than what we're currently seeing.
I'm not saying this will happen, but I remember when the same arguments were being used when Fleta was in Seoul, and when Fleta joined Seoul, because obviously everybody knows about this Fleta deadlift concept, right? But there was always arguments being made that when Fleta joined a team, with a team could actually support him, then he would just go above and beyond, and he has all this space to work with. But we didn't really quite see the same results.
But we have seen that this year in Shanghai. Like, so I think Seoul had their problems last year, but this year we really have seen Fleta performing better than he's ever done before. So I think there is something to that argument.
I don't think it was a player problem. I think it was more the structure's problem, the structure of the team and the way it was ran. And I don't think we'll see those problems with Hangzhou, because the one thing that I'm not even sure, who are the primary coaches of Hangzhou?
They're people that I always forget the names of.
Because
they're not somebody
this is something that we don't talk about a lot, but Hangzhou, I mean, they finished 4th last year.
Yeah, they've
always had good team play.
Mask and U4.
Yeah, Mask. U4 was brought on recently, like early this year.
Was U4
Shanghai with
the original Shanghai Dragons? He was the original Shanghai Dragons that was like responsible for bringing some of them on and had the undead strats and shit like that.
Maybe that's why I chose to forget it.
Yeah, but there is definitely something to be said about the Hangzhou coaching staff, because they have done a great job of integrating Gushue and fixing that communication issue. And they were very methodical in GOATs, and they've been decent this year as well.
And they're not like far out of it in terms of like regular season standing. So what, Shanghai is 11-2, like they're obviously they've pulled ahead. Above that, like Guangzhou is 8-6, and then you're looking at like New York at 9-3, and Hangzhou sitting at 6-7. Like, let's say they go far, if Architect plays with them in the Melee, we don't know. Let's say they go far and get like the 2 or 3 wins potentially. Like they can easily find themselves back up near the top of APAC.
Mm-hmm. Bazzi is also retired as well, which is another change for this team that bears mentioning. I think that this puts them in a position where they would have previously run Bazzi on Widowmaker, but Godsby is a ridiculous Widowmaker. So what do you?
Well, so is Architect.
It doesn't really. Yeah, and Architect's pretty good himself.
They're gonna if they take out Architect and Godsby, I'll be shocked from now on. Like that'll be what they run with every game.
Yeah, I think Adora maybe has an argument on Echo because he might have a bit of a head start over Architect, but apart from that, pretty much.
Godsby Architect might be one of the better DPS duos in the league now. They're so well-rounded together, and they're so good individually.
But what I like about both of them individually, and then I also like together, is they're 2 damage-dealing players who make a high impact, and they never really need a ton of resources and dedication to do it.
Totally agree.
Like you never have to like pocket either of them or play around them for them to kind of get theirs, which I think is going to allow them to put the resources into Gushue when he wants to play aggressive and really create so much chaos that they can go about and do the things that they're great at. Like that's why I think they'll excel, and I agree with Johnny. I think they have potential to be one of the best DPS duos in the league.
Okay, I didn't say one of the best, but one of the better.
So I think they have an opportunity to be one of the best.
They could be top 5.
Yeah,
they could
maybe even top 3.
Do you think the shock will suffer if there's a specific type of meta now that they don't have Sinatra and Architect. I mean, the obvious one that comes to mind is Doomfist, but they really only have Rascal now as a flex DPS. Everyone else is hit scan.
So I had that interview with Moth on the live broadcast, and he actually said that Krusty is trying to form Rascal into one of these leadership figures in the team to sort of replace Sinatra, which I found quite interesting because, you know, Rascal's reputation in the past struggled with the fuel, struggled with Lana Spitfire, but I could totally see that happening and turn out pretty well for them. I just found that note interesting. So I had someone ask me on my stream the other day, like, do you think San Francisco should pick up another DPS player? And I actually don't know.
I don't think they need it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think Rascal is for all of the issues that he's may have had in the past. I mean, last year the guy was lights out. Like, you could have made an argument he was an MVP candidate if you wanted to last year. I think he can cover all those bases in terms of the DPS. And then I think Striker and Once is like a odd kind of other two to have in, I guess. But I mean, Once has looked really good on like what's crazy to me is not really like the fact that you'll rely on Rascal, is the fact that now you go down to 2 hit scan players and one of them basically just comes out of like the ladder pretty much, and he's the one who's playing over Striker.
Yeah, a lot of the time.
I will say, if you wanted to plug the holes on Shock, Haxel is available.
Yeah, that's what people are speculating about. I mean, that would just be.
I don't know.
Actually, I don't know. Do we?
I would rather see Haxel go to Shock though than go to Seoul or New York, as he's been rumored. I don't think he does anything for Seoul or New York. I feel like that's such a waste. Like on New York, like what the hell is he doing?
Unless New York moves on from Who Are You or Libero, like they decide to trade them somewhere else.
Yeah. But unless they get rid of both of them, because the thing with Libero is that they've had so many flashy flex DPS players that haven't worked out. Like they've tried Flower, they've tried, you know, Pine occasionally played flex DPS, but was mostly hit scan, so okay. But like Flower and Who Are You, they've fielded them a lot and they've had very limited success. They've had much more success with solid old Libero.
I think would be an interesting. The reason I want to see Haxel go to Shock is because I think you need a strong hand in terms of the coaching for a player like Haxel. From what I hear,
to develop him
strong
and craft him for the future.
Say again.
To develop and craft him for the future.
Yeah, because I think he's had a lot of free reign on every single team he's had, and often that can be positive, sometimes that can be negative. But I think Shock would be the place for him where I'd like to see him develop as a player.
What if the Shock could swing a trade for Erster?
I think that would be kind of sick.
He's not playing at all right now for the Atlanta Reign, just sitting around doing nothing.
I'm disappointed with how little they're playing Erster.
I even thought like if you needed a flex DPS, somebody like Erster, or even like I was almost gonna say like EQO for the Shock. Like it's kind of like out there, but
Philly would be reluctant to give him up, but that would
because they have Hisu and Ivy. I mean, you have both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I had this crazy thought that, like, I think the destination of Haxel very much shows what what his priorities are as a player. Like, if he just decides to go with a team in Korea, yes, that could end up being a great team. But it also, in my mind, signifies that he wants to stay in Korea and, you know, play with the Korean lineup. Yeah. But if you are in the interest of winning, purely winning, your best chance of creating an incredible dynasty in Overwatch, I almost think that it would be the Philadelphia Fusion. And, you know, I understand. Philly has incredible predictable players, like Ivy, Hisu, like they're all great DPS players. But if you truly were in the business of creating a dynasty lasting years, the DPS duo of Haxel and Carpe would outlast anything else.
You would say that would be more impactful than him going to New York and playing with Jonak and Mono for who knows how long.
I think Philadelphia has a better proving grounds for a long-term dynasty than New York has currently. I think Philadelphia has a better foundation.
I would disagree, only because I think it makes more sense in my mind for him to go to Shock, and Shock are already the current reigning champions. So what better way to
when you
cement
say that, I'm like, well, you still sort of have to rotate the damaged players on the shock and like balance Rascal and.
I also would say some players wouldn't want to go. Like, if I'm Hacksaw, one of the scarier situations would be going to the shock, because I am going to the shock to replace the league MVP who just left, who plays pretty much like a lot of the Doomfist, right? Like the same like main hero. If you go there and you lose, it's kind of an ego hit a little bit, especially when they're especially when like if you were to look at, we've never had a roster, I think, like the shock. We're now adding to, imagine if they added Twilight and Hacksaw. Like, if they were to lose, you'd be like, what in the fuck happened? It would immediately kind of turn into a situation like you said with Fleta, right? Where Fleta, like, oh, maybe you can't win with him. Like, it would almost turn into the same type of thing.
Yeah.
I think the only one who doesn't. Like, it feels a bit odd to me.
What?
Like Hacksaw to shock. I feel like he would be a bit of an outsider going into the shock system.
He goes to New York or Seoul, I think.
I don't think he'd fit in because shock is is the term next man up. Is that it in sports?
Yeah.
It's a concept of essentially, everyone's playing for the team to win, including the people on the bench, and it's very much the concept of you're winning as a team, and even if you're on the bench on the sidelines, you're still helping your team succeed. I can't see Hacksaw being that player. That's the number one argument against him going to a team like that.
Also, hasn't he said that the team that he's joining is full Korean anyway?
Yes.
So like, this is just hypothetical. This is just speculation.
Maybe at this point in his career,
where would you rather see him between New York and Seoul?
Here's my reason.
I'd rather see him on New York.
Like, think about it this way: what the hell heroes does he actually get fielded for? Like, he gets fielded for the Genji 100%, whatever team he goes to, unless he's with Who Are You, in which case it's a bit of a discussion.
Maybe Echo.
The Pharah?
Echo.
Yeah, maybe the Echo, actually. I hadn't really thought about that. But does he get fielded for the May, man? Like, I wouldn't field him on the May over Libero, and I wouldn't field him on the May over Rascal if he joined the Shock. And
would you field him
over the... But I think when it came to Genji, I wouldn't field him on Genji over Prophet, honestly.
But I think the way I would look at him as New York is New York kind of putting Who Are You to the side and saying, hey, you need like some more reps, and then giving all of those games that Who Are You is playing to Hacksaw, and then the one map occasionally comes in for Libero, right?
I don't know.
It's so strange to me that
because Soul I worry about is they can't even make the star players they have now work, and then you start to add more, and then like how does that solve the issue, right?
Should we move on?
But they do need a good Echo. They do need a good Echo player.
True.
Oh, well, I had another question that I don't think we ever got to at the beginning, which was, I don't think we ever discussed what we expect the Shock to actually do with Twilight. Like when he gets run and whether he gets rotated with Violet and that kind of stuff.
It's probably just
here's I would like to reframe that question and take it from another direction to reach out an answer. And it would sort of be like, why did Shock field Architect on Ana in the first place?
Yeah.
And can like Twilight prevent a damaged player from playing Ana for the Shock again?
I'll say this.
When
have the Shock looked weakest this year? When Lucy, I was about to say when Moth has been out of rotation, but I guess that is applicable, isn't it? It is kind of like when Moth's out of rotation, when Lucio gets put out of rotation.
That's a great point.
And when Lucio gets put out of rotation, that is when the Shock have looked like the worst edition of Shock we have ever seen. I think you add in Twilight, you're kind of bolstering the ranks for when you might have to play those double flex support compositions, and you can start running Violet and Twilight alongside each other then.
He's almost an insurance policy.
I think also, as well as the Ana, which is an obvious one, because like Johnny said, they were literally subbing out Violet for Architect to play Ana. So there's clearly some problems with like positioning or skill on Ana. And when I was where the hell was I actually? Was it Dallas? Yeah, it was Dallas. I was doing an interview with Super and Sinatra, and they said, oh, we've got some surprise for you this game. And then I talked to them after the interview because they didn't want to give away what the surprise was. And they were like, oh, Architect's playing the Ana. And I said to them, is that because of a skill thing? And it can't be because of skill, right? Like you've got some weird strat. And they looked at each other and they were like, well, it's kind of because of skill. So I think that Violet's clearly got some issues with his Ana, whatever it is, like positioning or ability usage, and he'll show that up. But also the Moira. I expect Twilight to be played on Moira because Violet, I think, has had a few games where I've noticed his Moira getting caught out of position quite a bit. And I would expect Violet to play the Zen and the BAP and Twilight to play the Ana.
Johnny laughed at Moira out of position.
It's sort of like saying a main tank is bad because they can't play Orisa. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
All right, permission to move on.
One more thing I think we should touch on is Jonnu and Stitch to Washington.
Well, that's what I was about to move on to, but thank you.
Okay. well, when you say move on, I figured you're bringing in a whole new topic.
No. Move on to that one, though. Yeah, Jonnu and Stitch over to Washington. What did we think of them? Because when I was watching them play in this team, my expectations were actually met. I wasn't expecting much from them coming into this team with so little notice, no scrim time, and 200 ping gameplay.
I mean...
But that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, with Washington's roster, it's like, I feel like they have to stand out because they were the only ones who could have, right? Like, I feel like we've seen, like, everybody else just kind of had rough performances so far. I thought they did probably play better than I thought they were going to play. Is this a long-term home for them, though? I'm still not sure.
Apparently oh god, I can't remember what it was. My chat was saying something like there was an interview with the GM. See, the problem is this is secondhand knowledge.
No, there was a Reddit comment from someone who represents the Washington Justice,
right?
And they said that they were being completely transparent, saying they're on a 2-week contract and they're going to see, essentially, they're going to feel it out, and both Stitch and Jonnu and both the team are going to see if they want to sign them on for the full period of the league.
Right.
Yeah. At least, yeah.
I think that they looked like the best players on Washington in that match, despite the fact they were playing on 200 ping. I don't think this is the best place that Jonnu could go. Like, I would have loved to see Jonnu go to Seoul, and I think he would have made a huge impact there. But I think that Justice desperately needs somebody like Stitch. And I think that he has a decent opportunity there. It's a bit unfortunate that such good players are going to a bad team, but do I think they can save Washington? No, but they can at least look all right while they fail.
I think Washington Justice. No, I'm not going to. I was going to say a really hot take sentence, and I'm not going to. I'm just going to spread it out across of time and multiple phrases and paragraphs to make sure it's not a hot like one-liner on Reddit or anything.
So it can't get clipped.
Yes, exactly. I think Stitch is going to have a pretty tough time in this team because I think that he won't be able to show the best version of himself on like high ping. And that definitely showed when they played Junkertown against Florida Mayhem. And it was like, well, Stitch is coming out on Junkertown, point A, great Widow map. And he's like, I just can't match. I think it was BQB's Widowmaker.
Yeah. Can't play Widow
because of the ping. And it's like, it's not even about individual skill. It's purely because of ping.
But maybe that's
to Sombra.
Yeah.
And it doesn't infuriate me, but it's sort of like, I feel bad for the players almost. Because they are getting judged based on such an dumb condition. And it's just unfair in many ways. That
could be a reason that they did the 2-week contract to see if the players want to play with that ping and whatnot, or if they want to look for something in Korea.
Yeah. I'm just scared that like Washington Justice is going to be the death of Stitch because he won't be able to show his true self on Washington with high ping.
If the 0-40 Shanghai Dragons ain't the end of Fearless, I'm sure 2 weeks for the Washington Justice ain't gonna kill Stitch.
But we have seen players' careers.
I know you're joking. I know it's all jokes, mate.
We have seen
for real. The Stitch barely played last year too, and now you're gonna come out and like prove yourself outside of Vancouver Titans on 200 ping. No, you're gonna go back to contenders.
I think his reputation's too good to go back to contenders next year. I feel like people will realize that he was playing on a high ping.
Yeah. I will also say that
that would be best case scenario. But so I had this long rant I had this long rant in a game break about the Vancouver Titans and how I think it's super unfair that these contenders players have grinded throughout tier 2 now for a very long time, and they're being put in a super shit position to actually perform in the top level in the Overwatch League. These are not the proper conditions that you actually want to. So I have legs of a cat.
Let me pet the cat.
this is so unfair for the players on
Vancouver.
Vancouver Titans.
Yeah.
Because like it's not KSA's fault. It's not Suna's fault. But they're having to play on very high ping, and after the season, if they're not able to go to North America and play on proper ping, properly gel with their new teammates, remember, okay, they picked up half of Second Wind and then 3 new players, and they're not being able to gel with their new teammates. They're playing on high ping. It might very well be the last chance ever for KSA and Suna to play in the Overwatch League, and people are going to have to judge their professional career based on dumb circumstances, and I think it's super unfair, and that sort of applies to Stitch too. I think it's just an unfair position, and I just want to see them play on like proper circumstances in a good environment on good ping.
But I think
that's what it's all about. That's when you get a chance to prove yourself.
You've seen these players be good in the past, and I think you've seen KSA and Suna play well with that ping in the Overwatch League. If somebody was to hold that against them, they're just dumb. Where I don't think. I would be shocked if that type of thing is held against them like in the future.
Okay, so let me rephrase.
Yeah.
Would you, because Lulzish has been on an Overwatch League roster for a year, would you consider him over some of the contenders' main tanks?
Contenders off main tanks. I mean, I haven't really seen Lulzish play.
He hasn't played.
Exactly. And it's like, I sort of feel bad for Lulzish now, because he's not being able to put himself out there.
Sure, yeah.
Be like a name that people think of. He's not showing up on Liquipedia when contenders teams are winning weekly tournaments. He's just sitting on the Washington Justice page, just waiting to get some playtime in. And I think it's not the same for discovering talent.
Yeah, I think you've got a point, but I don't think it applies to Stitch. Like I think that it does apply to the Vancouver Titans a little bit, because they don't have those big reputations of like, we know that these guys can perform at the highest level, whereas we've seen that Stitch actually can, right? Like people just have to remember back a year. But for the Titans players, it's a rough situation for sure. But because of how weird the situation is, their choice is to continue playing in contenders and maybe make a name for themselves to come into the league next year, or take a risk with the high ping and see if they can perform well. And I would say that a couple of the players have looked pretty decent.
Yeah.
Some of the others have looked pretty bad, and I do think that that'll hurt them. But that's kind of the risk that you take anytime you sign to an Overwatch League team that's bad. Like anytime you would sign to a Boston Uprising.
Well, yeah. What's like?
That's what I disagree with, though. Because, like, okay, I agree a little bit to an extent, but in my mind, if it was an optimal situation, Vancouver Titans would make a statement, or make an interview with the website and be like, hey, we picked up KSA and we picked up Suna because we're building for the long term. We really believe in the talent. COVID is screwing us over. We want to see them next year. No. Like, they can take whatever stance they want. If they want short-term results with KSA and Suna in the lineup playing from Europe with 200 ping, they're out of their minds, because they're not letting the other players in NA properly flourish and prove themselves with hamstrung by 2 people with 200 ping. But if you make an interview and you say, we're building for the long term because we really believe in all 6 of these players, and then we're going to improve on this roster, we're going to bring them here, we have a rough plan, we have a vision, that's when you start convincing me that this is fine.
I do think when you go down the road though of talking so much about the ping, whether it's a disadvantage, whatnot, you get into, what about Fielder? We talked about how good he was with the 200 ping.
No, it's different.
Well, what's different about it?
Is that different?
Yeah, no.
The difference is he played good and then he played bad.
Stitch taking a Widow duel against BQB on 200 ping, and Fielder shooting a fucking Reinhardt with an Ana rifle. Yeah, of course it's different.
But that was so if Fielder starts playing bad, is then the argument that he's just because he has 200 ping, or what is the argument against that? Because then it's when somebody plays good,
I get where you're coming from.
But when somebody plays good with the ping, we can't say, wow, they're amazing, they played good with the ping. And then when somebody plays bad, you can't be like, oh, well, it's the ping's fault.
No, then I think the proper opinion should be Fielder is super impressive because he's doing this with high ping. It should not be that we're normalizing ping as a condition that player can perform under, because that's when I think we're taking the wrong approach. Either we're impressed by Fielder doing this on a high ping, or we're disappointed with others not being able to play like Fielder with high ping.
Yeah, I think that I have been impressed of Fielder. And the as far as I'm aware, it's the 2 players on the Vancouver Titans with hyping, right? It's just
Suna and KSA. Yeah.
Is KSA actually
roles
playing from
affect
Saudi
differently.
Arabia?
I think
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
The rules obviously do affect it.
Yeah, but I just think that that's the risk that they take. And I think that honestly, KSA has been one of the more impressive players despite playing on high ping. It's like it's people like Wolf and Kaka that I feel like are gonna suffer from this more than anything because they've come in and they've looked kind of poo, even though they're playing on decent ping. Like maybe there's still all of those normal excuses of like it's a brand new team, they're coming in without the necessary coaching, they were just thrown together and they've got teammates on high ping. But yeah, those are the players that I
think your argument though, Johnny, is that like you don't want to see their performance being held against them and then like not play next year or something like that.
Yeah.
Where I
that
think
would be worst case scenario because I feel bad for them actively.
But what's the worst case scenario? Is that they go back to contenders?
It's that Vancouver Titans say, "Oh, we didn't manage to get any wins because this roster didn't perform," and I'm like, "Yeah, because you didn't put them in a position to perform."
Right, but
so you can't start on a clean slate next year.
But I would still say they're in a better spot, even if that happens, to end up on the bench somewhere than if they would have stayed in contenders and then been in the full contenders pool across the world to then fight for spots.
Maybe. But it's impossible to tell.
They'd be in a better spot, I think. Yeah, it's difficult to tell, but I think just having the experience playing in the league and having people see them and just be more visible, I think there's a much better shot that they would move on to another team as opposed to just kind of being one in the sea of all contenders.
Am I also just being cynical when I think that the argument about Vancouver Titans building for the future is just they just threw this roster together to try and get a roster together?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you could go down 2 paths. I think they should make a statement publicly and say if you're building for the future with this, or if you want short-term wins.
I mean, you would never lock yourself into. Yeah, you would never do that.
Like the org wants the flexibility, right? Just to see if this roster does well, but they're not intending to keep.
Or see what parts of this roster do well and then fill it in. Like, I mean, you would never be like, "Hey, this is the roster we're staying with forever," and then piss people off again when you make changes.
It's whatever. We can move on. I just have questions for Twitter. I'm like, what's going on?
Well, it's time for the main melee.
Bren had a lot to add to that segment. He was just like,
you fuckers were trying to talk over each other the entire time. I couldn't get a word in edgeway.
Go on, Bren. What's your opinions about it?
I don't care anymore. I mean, all the points that I had, I think you guys have kind of fleshed out. The only thing I was going to add is that you take that risk when you go to a team like Boston. How many times has Boston chewed up a good player and spat him out, and now they're not? Yeah. I think Johnny's got a point with it, but also at the same time, you need to take those risks and join the teams and take the opportunities when you can. Otherwise, you never know when the next one's going to come up.
Yeah, you're not gonna play in contenders and go immediately to the shock.
Yeah. Let's talk about the main melee Asia. Because, I'm actually really looking forward to this topic, this segment, because this is what my favorite part. One of my favorite parts of being on the desk last year was doing these prediction run brackets. So here we have the Asian bracket. It's fleshed out. The teams have picked who they want to play against. Guangzhou Charge obviously get a bye because they're the #1 seed. No surprises really. Shanghai were #2. They picked London. Hangzhou were #3, I think.
Yes, I believe
so.
And
they picked Seoul, and then New York.
No. New York were #3. Hangzhou was #4.
Hangzhou #4.
Yeah. New York picked Chengdu instead of Seoul Dynasty because I think they weren't really sure
which Seoul would show up.
Yeah, which Seoul would show up. You know.
Yeah, but this is
one
our
soul
template.
You slap and the other soul you lose to.
This is what we've got to work with. I mean, I don't think there's much to add regarding which teams have picked which teams. I think it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
When I look at it. Unless you guys want to add any, flesh out anything.
I think Guangzhou were a little bit lucky to get the #1 seed, honestly. They nearly lost it by losing to the Chengdu, you know? And also I think there's a really strange situation that we've got with this bracket because Nero presumably is not going to play.
He didn't play in the last game.
He didn't play the last game. He tweeted and followed up on a Reddit comment saying that he's mentally out of it at the moment. He's burnt out. And he's also having visa issues at some point in the future. And I don't know whether those have kicked in yet, but it seems from the outside like Guangzhou are probably going to be running Happy Eileen. And that puts them in a pretty bad position, honestly. Like you could tell in that game against Chengdu that it nerfed them quite significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought about the bracket that I submitted to Kurt, and I wish I could just call Architect up and ask him if he's gonna play.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming
if I can ring him up, I would change my prediction.
The first one. What is the first one? Oh, it's Matt's. Oh my
here
God, Matt!
So
if
I could change this, it would be the Spark in the finals.
Well, it's too late.
Playing against
I don't care.
The Dragons. The Dragons, I still would have win though.
Why do you have the Dynasty so much faith in them?
Because I believe. Well, I think it all kind of comes down to what you perceive the meta is going to be.
Yeah.
Where my gut tells me we are going to go back to double shield in some kind of form. So that's where I think Soul was excelled, and I think that's kind of that's where my confidence lies. My confidence doesn't lie in Soul Dynasty. My confidence lies in the fact that this could be a meta, and I've seen Soul do that. I've seen them perform this one act good a bunch. Like I don't have faith in the team. I just have faith in them to perform. It's like I think they have 10 songs on their CD. One of them's good. I think this is I think they can play one song really fucking good, and I think they can go out there and they can just. It's like Cisco. He can go out there and play the thong song 4 times in a row, and people will be okay with it. I think that's what Soul Dynasty is with the fucking double shield. They can go out there. Nobody knows any of the other songs on Year of the Dragon. It's the name of Cisco's album. They just
Apart
know
from
the
you,
thong
because
song.
apparently you know the name of the album.
I saw Cisco play at Atlantic City. I was absolutely hammered out of my mind, and he played the thong song like 3 times. And I was with my brother, and I was like, "Yo, Year of the Dragon," and he just kind of like looked at me and like gave me like a point, because I was the only one in the whole crowd who knew any other thing about him. But yeah, that's kind of my rant on Soul. I'm not confident in the team. I'm confident in what the potential meta is with the team.
I think if the meta is double shield, I think I agree with you. I think that their game against the Shanghai Dragons last time was a 3-2 close game, and I have faith in the Dragons to win that final.
Yeah.
If they rematched, but I would expect the Dynasty to win if it's double shield. I don't know. Do we want to have a bit of a discussion about what the meta is? Because it does influence this bracket. I don't know whether it will be double shield.
It's hard for me to see it. But what can you see it be then?
Well, I think we'll see both. I think we'll see double shield Echo, and I think we'll see dive compositions with Echo.
The good place the logical starting place is to return to before we had hero pools,
which is May McCree.
No, not with Echo. Not
May
with
McCree.
You don't think
that the McCree? You don't think the McCree stops the Echo being as impactful?
Maybe May McCree, but I want to sort of take a lot from this past weekend where we saw Hitscan was actually open to play, but we still saw a ton of Echo because Echo combos well with Brigitte's armor pack, which sort of tells me that McCree and Widow isn't necessarily a hard counter. I don't know if May would impact things differently because if you speed things up.
What about Torbjorn? Do we see Torbjorn come back?
The thing is,
some people will play
Torbjorn could be a good counter. Like maybe if you play like
double shield Torb.
No one's gonna play like Torb McCree, but
people play Torb McCree this week.
True, but Echo deals with Torb turret quite easily with the sticky bombs.
Yeah,
so
you think so?
It's
because long range sticky bombs.
But then you're just using your sticky bombs on a turret.
Yeah, but
and they have almost equal cooldown.
Yeah, but I think still you have a 10-second window.
No, they don't actually. I'm chatting out my ass.
You have a 10-second window when the turret dies, and I think Echo is fast-paced enough where you can capitalize on that 10-second window, and the Torb won't get a great turret location in the middle of the fight. So
stickies have a 6-second cooldown for reference.
Maybe even a double shield May Ash instead of the McCree.
I don't think we're going to see May. I think teams have started to phase out May a little bit more, and we're playing on the patch as well. This isn't going to make a huge difference, but it is a small change to consider as well, is that the CC reductions have come in. This is the patch that are going to be played on. So May's freeze. May's freeze is being slightly nerfed. It does impact McCree because it changes the timings. I was getting thrown off the other day playing it because you flashbang, the tiny changes they've made to it, suddenly you can't kill Moiras unless you literally flashbang and you find a hammer and every bullet hits.
Yeah, go on.
It's hard to predict what this is going to be.
I was
I
gonna
think
go
double
on a
shield
rant
seems-
about the McCree nerf.
Yeah.
And I think that was really bad. I made an experimental card video on YouTube, and I talked about it. And I think the reduced flashbang duration is actually pretty bad for the game. And I think Tracer players could abuse that pretty hard, and Moira players could abuse it.
That was one change that didn't need to happen.
Yeah, out of all the CC, they made a couple, right? They changed Brigitte in the experimental card, didn't they?
Yeah.
But it didn't go through. And instead, the McCree one went through, which I found quite odd because.
Also, the freeze is a big nerf for me. So
That's what. So I said this, and I can't remember who it was. People disagreed with me.
Yeah, I disagree a bit as well because I feel like the most important part of the Mei when you use her in like a rush comp is almost the slow, because the slow is part of catching up to people and killing them. Like if you have a diva that's trying to get away, if you slow in her, like she doesn't even need to be freezed. If you slow her, she's gonna get blown up.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the freeze timing is going to be huge, but I do agree with Bren that Mei is going to get phased out. I think we're pretty much on the cusp of Mei not being meta anymore.
I think we'll see Ashe, Echo, double shield.
What I noticed
dive with Moira.
What I noticed this weekend from watching the Asian teams was that some teams favor the Ashe more, some teams favor McCree more when they were both available, and I think a lot of that is going to depend on map geometry. So depending on what some certain maps you just want to play the McCree because it's more suited.
And in NA they select Ashe into Widowmaker on Junkertown and feed.
Yeah. I mean NA is its own fiesta, isn't it?
All right, who's brackets next?
Yeah, who's brackets next? Josh is.
Oh my! Here we go.
Oh, so we're basically the same. You just believe that. Yeah,
we're the opposite, Matt.
What do you mean? Well, no, it's the same thing except you believe
Basically
in the spark.
Gushing spark.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't plugged in my. You can't see.
Yeah, who do you think is gonna win the end?
Well, but I had the dynasty just getting 3-0 here because I have the dragon. I did pick a winner. It was the dragons. Kurt just hasn't selected it for whatever reason. But yeah, I actually had dragons 3-0 in the final as well. I feel like even with the addition of architect, that it takes more time for you to be able to upgrade your synergy to the level that you can take on the dragons in a close game. So I believe that the final will be a little bit of a flop. But I also think that Dynasty are going to get 3-0. And the reason for that is just that I'm taking the odds. Like the odds of it being double shield, I think, are lower than it being dive or echo or rush. And they suck at all three of those.
Is there a meta that New York can beat Shanghai in?
Okay, Josh knows better than me.
I don't
maybe
think so.
some may.
Yeah, I mean I've watched a decent amount of Asia as well. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
No, the first time they played was 3-2, right? Yes, because they played after Seoul. Seoul lost to the Dragons 3-0, and then it was a 3-2. Remember, New York won the first two games and then got reverse swept.
Yeah. What? I'm trying to remember back. What went so well for them in the first two? Oh, that was the week where we thought it was going to be Echo played constantly, and actually New York just came out with May Reaper in the first map and didn't opt into the Echo and instead played double shield against
They looked
them.
really good. Was that when they were? But was Shanghai running Fearless full time that series?
For the first two maps, yes, and
Didn't
actually, yes,
sweep?
full time, and yes, Shanghai reverse swept. But
Yeah, New York went up 2-0.
It looked good from New York. What I remember from that was that I really liked that they didn't get sucked away by the hype of Echo and try and run it in a mirror against Shanghai. They kind of counter-comped it with the Torb.
Well, they did. They did play Echo. They played Tracer Echo.
They played Tracer
Echo.
It was
they played Tracer Echo and Hanzo Echo on Eichenwald, but that was also Eichenwald was where Hopper played the Roadhog and was pretty sick actually.
It's like, are we overlooking the potential for a close game there?
Maybe. It depends how well I think New York prep for, but I'm expecting it to be like 3-1. I mean, I'll get into it when my bracket comes up, but what is the next bracket?
Personally, I think that New York is going to be putting a lot of prep into Chengdu because they're their opponents, and I mean, even though all of us have predicted New York over Chengdu, that's That's one you
So
have
I'll
to put in
say
the work for.
that was the match that I was the most torn on was New York Chengdu, because I think Chengdu are probably the scariest team to prep against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange to say because we were saying the exact same stuff last year, but the team.
Well, they've lost to Chengdu already, right?
No, not New York, I don't think.
I don't think so. I can't remember.
Oh, wait.
To be honest.
I thought
no,
they
it was.
did.
Well, maybe they did, actually.
Because I think I casted a game where NYXL 3-0 Chengdu, and then I believe the week after they lost to Chengdu.
Let me
What
pull
did
up
they
the
lose
result.
to?
Or they lost to Guangzhou. They may have been Guangzhou.
I think we're thinking of the Vancouver Titans when they came in and they lost to Chengdu, because it was like they were a brand new team over in Asia, but then all of that shit came out about them not actually scrimming for the match because they didn't know what was going on.
NYXL 3-0 Chengdu, and then beat them 3-1 the next week. The same week that they lost to the Dragons, they beat.
Right.
Chengdu.
Yeah, I think with this matchup, I think New York and Chengdu has a. In my mind, I could definitely see Chengdu taking that one. I also have the Dragons winning in the finals. It's just not selected, but I think if Architect plays, even if Architect doesn't play, I would expect Hangzhou to win over Seoul. But
Right.
I'm kind of banking on Architect being in this lineup and playing with them for this weekend, to be honest, because I think that's where their strength is going to be going into. I don't think it's going to be a role in the finals, though, like you do, Josh. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think I put 3-2 Dragons.
It's also interesting that we have both, in fact, we've all predicted that Charge loses their only game, even though they're unbeaten at the moment recently. Like they haven't lost in May.
Johnny hasn't done his bracket yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen Johnny's. The Charge, dude.
Who have you got winning it all?
Dragons 3-0 in the finals.
Okay.
I thought you were going to upset us with the Charge win. I thought these payments haven't been coming through to me anymore, so I wondered if you were getting them. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, they pay me quite well actually. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty decent.
What's going on with your dynasty pick?
Well, let's start from step 0, Brennan Hook. I actually think Excelsior Hunters will be a stomp because I think Chengdu mostly only look good with the Wrecking Ball composition, and I trust Excelsior to actually beat that Wrecking Ball composition. I think Hunters have been a bit cute, you know, them trying Among on the Winston, on the Reinhardt, and, you know, they look okay, but then they only really win a lot of maps and matches when they properly play the Wrecking Ball composition, and I think Excelsior will be prepared for that. So, don't think there's as much room for an upset there. When it comes to the Spark Dynasty match, I think the fact that there is no hero pool this weekend massively benefits the Seoul Dynasty. Because I think if I'm the coach of Seoul Dynasty, I just say, fuck the meta. Just play what we do best, what we're comfortable with, what we play with when we actually win matches, and we just do that. Because that is our best bet. We're not going to win this tournament by trying to improvise and play dive the last moments a la freaking 2018 championship playoffs. Like, it's not going to work. So let's just slow the game down. I think Hangzhou Spark will similarly try to slow the game down quite a bit. And when you when you play a pretty default composition, like Hangzhou Spark did this past weekend, where they played, did they play McCree Torb? They
Yes.
played,
Yeah.
When you slow the game down like that, it's hard because the win condition either becomes slow things down further than your opponents and just outspam them, or it becomes increase your aggression and actually like dive and counter the enemy bunker composition. Because I don't think you can win like a Ryan Saria, Tor McCree composition against a properly slow Seoul Dynasty. And so I think Seoul Dynasty will slow down the game so much that Hangzhou won't be able to actually like match Seoul's bunker. And then the option will be for Hangzhou to actually dive properly against Seoul, and I don't think they'll be able to do it properly. I said in my predictions that I think it will be a 5-map series, and I think Seoul will win 3-2, because I actually think that being able, I'm just assuming here, it's probably a loser's pick map, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah. And so I think that will actually benefit Hangzhou because they will be able to go to the maps they have a chance at winning and they feel comfortable with. And I think that will be able to yield them 2 maps. But I think overall, Soul will slow down the game so much that it'll win over the course of 5 maps.
Look at those shorts. Sorry. Look at those legs.
Gymshark.
Holy moly. Model
Gymshark.
Yo, Gymshark. Yo, hit me up.
Hit me
Sorry,
up.
you're wearing Gymshark shorts.
Yeah.
I've never seen you work out in your life.
Yeah, I've been doing home workouts.
Oh, really?
In the gym.
Yeah.
I've been starting yoga, and it's boy oh boy, does my body need it.
Every
Dude,
3 hours,
Daily yoga.
I play WoW, I get up and I do a bunch of squats, a bunch of sit-ups, and a bunch of push-ups, and then I drink another coffee and I go back to play WoW.
That's very healthy, actually. That's really good for you. Sitting is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy. I think Josh should do yoga streams. But that's just me.
Dude, I would watch you do Wii yoga streams, dude. Do Wii yoga. Wii
Me
yoga,
and the Wii
dude.
trainer.
Yeah, with your fucking Wii boats just fucking flailing around. Dude, put a fucking headband on that fucking forehead, dude.
Oh god, yeah. I need to get myself a headband, actually.
You should get like a full like Richard Simmons workout thing.
Do 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 boom boom boom.
Dude, morning yoga with Sideshow, dude.
Oh god.
Just get a little place with some plants, just put it all around, just fucking
He wouldn't be able to do yoga. I don't know
Bren
if
is
you've
lost.
realized how inflexible Josh is.
I've been doing it though, and the videos are good enough for people that are they're designed for people who are inflexible, right?
What
Like they
videos are
know
you
their
watching?
audience.
Is it
It's
YouTube?
called it's YouTube. It's called Yoga with Adrian, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. You know it? You
She's
know
got
it?
like millions of views. Yeah, she's got millions of views. Yeah.
She's huge.
I downloaded an app called Daily Yoga, and I put it on like a phone tripod thingy. So I just have the phone in front of me as I do the poses on a mat. It's like 20-minute sessions every day. It's a good app.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we go full foreheads,
Were we talking about like the hero flexibility? I can't remember. How did
Yeah,
that-
I
I'm
don't
talking about
know.
my
I
bracket.
can't
My
remember.
bracket. Throw up the bracket because I actually
my workout
Oh,
clothes.
Johnny, you were talking about the flexibility of Soul.
no. I was done with that matchup. Don't worry, you guys don't have to listen.
Brent's trying to save it.
Yeah,
He's like, I've seen Golden Boy do this before. Quick, just come up with some T-Mobile segue. Come up with a segue.
it's on the VOD, Bren. You can catch up with the VOD later. It comes out tomorrow. But then for the semifinals, I actually didn't know that Nero was like burnt out. So I predicted a charge, thinking Nero was going to play. I thought they only played a slower style this past weekend because they thought it was generally better to rotate out Nero. But if he's not playing, that makes a big difference. So I predicted Charge to beat Dynasty 3-1 because I thought with Nero in the lineup, they would be able to do the dive properly against Soul's bunker composition that Hangzhou wouldn't be able to pull off. And some people are going to be like, oh, Hangzhou can dive with Gu Shui. He's one of the best Winstons. And like I don't care what you have to say. I think Charge DPS dive was one of the best dives in the APAC region. I was so impressed with that. And I think they would be able to beat Soul Dynasty if they dove properly against Soul's sort of improvised bunker, half kind of meta. It's probably not the best comp, but it works for Soul. I thought Guangzhou would be able to outplay that. And then I think they lose 0-3 in the finals against Dragons. So
I also just want to point out that I just did a bit of digging into the Reddit comments that Nero made about his burnout. And he originally tweeted that he wasn't going to play that week, as in the past week. And he said, I'm sorry, I hope you guys understand, Happy and Eileen are nasty. And then he tweeted saying he feels so lost. And basically he said on Reddit, I'm not going to retire, just need to find my motivation again. So it is possible that he plays this week. Apparently his visa is valid until the end of the month, so that hasn't actually hit the Guangzhou charge yet. So in theory, he might be motivated for like a tournament setting, which seems a bit unlikely.
Possibly, but we shall see. As
Bren.
we move across the sea over to the main melee North America.
Kurt, take the mic away from
Dun, 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 dun. Yep.
Oh,
Do you have a bracket for
just
this?
changed the lower third.
Well, we don't have a bracket for this, right? Because the teams
No,
haven't
but
even
we're gonna make
We
one.
selected yet.
can make
We're gonna
one,
make
though.
one together a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the first match in the only match that we know.
Toilet
Actually,
bowl.
it's
Yeah.
the Titans versus Toronto Defiant. I've been quite impressed with Toronto Defiant recently. I don't know if you guys have.
Yo, my man Logix pops off, dude.
He does, man.
That guy
does.
slaps.
They looked impressive when they played against the San Francisco Shock, and they had many opportunities to win the series against the Valiant. Yeah. I was loving that game, watching it personally, because if the Toronto Defiant won, it would put Paris in the top 4, which I believe is more indicative of the actual seedings, and so would be better for the tournament. It would have given us better games. But also, Defiant needed to win one game in that battle against LA in order for us to get a Shock versus Philly grand finals. So I was very invested in that Defiant Valiant game when I was watching it on stream. And then the more that I got into it, the more I felt like the Defiant really did have chances to win. They were in a super winnable situation.
Yeah. Does anyone think the Titans are going to win that match? I don't think
No. I don't want to speak for anyone here, but does anyone here think that?
Is there any meta where they could? I can't think of one.
I don't even think it's a meta question.
No.
You know what I mean? I think it's a fundamentals question. All
right, so we would have Toronto then that would move on.
I think the only way Defiant lose this match is if they do like the meme where like the guy puts like the wooden stick in his bicycle wheel and it's like, oh fuck. It's the only way Toronto loses this match.
Okay.
I think after that though, it's like if you're Paris, who the fuck are you gonna pick?
Well, here's the question, right?
Just, like,
look at it. Here's the options.
I know, but like Defiant can be scary at times. Boston just won.
Yeah, it's weird.
Do you pick the Justice?
I think
I would personally pick the Justice.
I probably would pick the Justice. Yeah.
In my bracket when I did this, I picked the Justice. That's what in my mind.
I think that Paris might pick Boston as well, because remember we're in a hero pool situation, so it's not like we are guaranteed to have Boston in a good meta. Like this week was good for them. They got Color Hex on a carryable hero, and they had Jerry playing hit scan.
I think
if it's not Ash Echo, it's an auto win over Boston.
I think though they could pick the Justice because they have 2 players playing on 200 ping that just had it this week.
Yeah, for sure. Who to exploit.
Yeah, you know how to and who to exploit. If they pick Justice, does Atlanta pick anybody other than Boston?
Well, let's have a look.
I mean,
the results haven't changed.
Yeah, I mean, what would have changed?
I just have to see him up on the screen.
I
think Boston.
They probably think Boston, right?
Well, they did 3-0 the Houston Outlaws. What was it? Last week. So not the games that we've just seen, but the last week. If I'm Atlanta and I've already put in the prep and you already know that you've beaten the Outlaws recently, I would be tempted to go for them because, okay, it's the Outlaws. They can look scary when they get like Doomfist, Sombra, dive metas or something, but ain't no motherfucker playing Doomfist right now. It just ain't happening apart from Chipsa.
I also think though, you would have a huge advantage in terms of the tank line as well.
Well, but
I think this is really up in the air, but personally, if I was the coach of Atlanta, I would pick Houston.
I don't think Outlaws would be a good pick personally. I think the reasons you've put up here, Josh, saying that they 3-0'd them and they've prepped for them recently, you throw it out the window because there's no hero pools. Anything, it's the wild west of metas. Yeah. Anything could develop, something could come up that Outlaws could be good at, and I think Outlaws have shown to be a more consistent team than the ones remaining.
Boston's the safe pick.
I think Boston's a safe pick.
Johnny, tiebreaker.
What about? I think Boston might actually just play the stuff they did this past weekend because they know how to do it properly. I was going to give a shout for maybe Toronto because I think these matches are all on Friday, right? And so you would have Toronto wake up early to play a match, and then you could capitalize on their fatigue and actually just you have the gameplay footage ready, and you can just counter what Toronto Defiant did, and you know their strats.
Oh,
that's the pro gamer move.
If you're Paris, would you then pick Toronto, seeing them play?
Hold on, but isn't Toronto in the same time zone as Atlanta?
No. What he's saying is the way it works is that Defiant Vancouver match is played. Yeah. Then we do a watch point because you have to pick these matches, and then these matches are on Friday.
Oh,
so you would
have 5-match day.
So Toronto would have had to get up to play the early game, and you would have seen them play.
Dude, Johnny
First
is
match is
so
at 10 a.m.
fucking smart, dude. Yo, what the fuck?
But isn't that way too late to do any prep? Like, is anyone really going to change their strategy in the 2 hours before their match?
I mean, I can only speak based on experience, and keep in mind it was freaking 2016. So, goes out the window in a heartbeat. But it's like when you sit there at a tournament and you watch a match, you just look at like tendencies and like you look at compositions and you're like, oh, they're bubbling, they're Doomfist a lot, like we should counter this, or like they're nanoing this hero over and over again. Like you can spot tendencies like that and sort of capitalize on that. Preferably, you would see like what their setup is on one map, and then you'd want to play that map because you could theorize on how to beat it.
Right. I could see like if Defiant has a close game with Vancouver, like Paris could easily just pick Toronto, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
But let's just roll those guys.
What about this though? What about the idea of them picking the Outlaws here, Atlanta picking the Outlaws, in order to make gladiators choose between the rematch of the Uprising or the Defiant? Like, how fun would that be for Atlanta to be like, mate, I don't care who we're picking. We're just going to make sure that you have to
at that
pick
point,
between the
Atlanta
Uprisings
would just, if I was Atlanta, if you wanted to go that route, I would probably just pick Toronto and force them to play either the Outlaws or Boston.
Yeah, I feel like there's an argument to be made that Reign should not pick the Uprising just to force the Gladiators to be scared of rematching the Uprising.
So let's say the Reign pick. Let's have some fun. Let's say the Reign pick Toronto.
Okay.
What do the Gladiators do? Do they take the I would take the rematch with Boston.
No, I would not.
Yes,
wouldn't
you? Because they only won control.
Mate, what does that say for the players? What does that say?
They only won control.
No, but they came close to winning
wrong.
Hanamura and Gibraltar.
But you've got to know what you did wrong.
Yeah.
The coaches have got to be confident that they can learn from that match. You can't just stay
And
boomed after
honestly,
losing to Boston.
this decision goes down to the coaches, realistically, right? I mean, obviously the players have some input into it, but I think Deepe would pick Boston.
You would have to.
Maybe.
Because Johnny, if let's say I was coaching your team and we had just lost the week before to the worst team in the league.
To the Shanghai Dragons.
And then we had to pick, and I was like, oh no, I don't think we should play against the worst team in the league. How much confidence do you have as a player at that point?
Okay, let's go down the rabbit hole, Matt. What happens? You go up against the Boston Uprising. They've just beat you on control 3 maps in a row in an official. They come out, you pick them, and you're like, oh, we're going to dominate. Oh, they beat us on control again. We're down 0-1 against this team. We're supposedly better than. I think the player,
they would be
I think
boomed
OG is
after
going to
match
shit
one.
himself.
But I think
live in game. Like
Boston,
I think
though, we've seen them play so horrible.
No, but why would
many of these heroes are available, and they're
why would you build up so much pressure for this match when you're just playing fucking toddlers?
So you'd
like,
rather
there's no need to make it like the next episode of Game of Thrones. No, just pick a shitty opponent, doesn't matter who, and just dominate them. Like Outlaws would be no pressure. There's no pressure to be the Outlaws.
Brennon's about to say something.
Teams.
Yeah.
Also, though, I do think that if Gladiators were in this position, I also think they would pick Boston because Fuel and Outlaws, didn't they just recently play a show match, this Lone Star Challenge thing, and the Outlaws won?
You don't care about the other teams. I'm sorry. It's not WWE.
Brent, who do you think they would play? Do you think they would pick Boston? I think they pick Boston.
I think Deepe would pick Boston. What would Deepe do? And he would pick Boston.
I always think about that when I go through
okay, does anyone would anyone have any of the higher seeds losing in the knockouts?
All right, well here I would have the Outlaws winning.
Oh
no,
really?
No, Decay Tracer.
Fuel have not looked that good recently.
Yeah, Fuel looked terrible in their game against Paris. Honestly,
Fuel have not looked good recently.
But Outlaws looked terrible in their game against Atlanta as well.
The show match they just played had no hero pools, and the Outlaws won.
How seriously were they taking it? I didn't watch any
Not
of it.
really.
So
They were just kind of fucking around. Yeah, I thought I would sneak it in there in case somebody thought it was a serious game.
Dude,
there's no way.
I would say that is.
What comp do you have the Outlaws winning on here?
Doom for Sombra, of course.
Sombra what?
Doom for Sombra.
Doom for no one's going to be playing Doom.
Too good. No, Fuel are going to play Tracer Echo and just freaking go.
I think all of the higher seeded teams would win.
I think that some of these games are going to be close, and there's likely going to be one upset. I think Rain honestly could lose to the Defiant.
Yeah.
No, you guys. What are you
but
doing?
here's the thing: I could see Rain losing to the Defiant. I could see Gladiators losing to Uprising. I could see the Fuel losing to the Outlaws.
Ain't gonna happen again.
No. Sorry.
I mean, not all three of them are going to happen.
No.
Maybe they will.
No, I'm sorry. I did the power rankings going into the season with Costa and Josh just de-escalated that so far. I won't let it happen again. Kurt, press the freaking Dallas Fuel and just leave it be.
Press the Dallas Fuel win.
There we go.
Okay, let's roll with this. Who would the Shock pick? Would they pick the Rain, being they
I
just
think you pick the
3-0'd
Fuel,
them?
man.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I think
They would pick the Rain,
Fuel.
right?
I think
No,
so.
the Shock have said, Super said in interviews that when Zoe was trying to pry out a little bit of spice, a little bit of information out of Super, he said that we're just going to pick whoever we think is the worst. And I think they would probably think that Fuel is the worst.
But they just 3-0'd Atlanta.
But it depends. It depends. I think they would 3-0 all those teams. Maybe not the Paris Eternal, but
Would they pick the Gladiators?
no.
The only team I can't see them picking is Paris.
They're going to pick whatever team looks the weakest from that day.
Probably, yeah. But which team do we think that will be? Because
Fuel.
the Gladiators, Fuel, and Defiant have all looked pretty shaky recently.
Yeah.
I think Fuel.
I think if Atlanta looks rough against the Defiant and you've already just 3-0'd them last week, you would pick Atlanta.
Do you really think the Fuel are going to look bad this week with
I don't think
Doha
so,
on Echo and Decay on Tracer?
Bro,
I feel
Trill's
like
coming
this
out
is-
on Hiko's stream saying he doesn't like Overwatch. Their bench is boomed.
Well, it doesn't fucking
That
matter.
negative attitude seeps. Like a toxic waste spill. It seeps.
Trill can't communicate with Doha and Decay. He doesn't know Korean. They'll be fine. Their mental's intact. They've got the Babblefish barrier.
All right, so who do it's
I think
either
Fuel.
between the Rain or the Fuel. Who do you guys think?
I think we're overthinking this.
Personally, I think Fuel have way more pop-off potential than the Gladiators, and they just lost to the Uprising yesterday. I think it's likely that they pick the Gladiators. But
All right, so let's say Gladiators. Let's say Gladiators.
Sure.
Gladiators.
I would
does
pick
the-
Rain or Gladiators.
Yeah, who do the Mayhem pick?
I'm fucking molding. I'm going to make a cup of tea. You can fill out the rest yourself.
Do you think the Mayhem pick Dallas, or do they pick
Wait.
the Rain?
Oh, is Mayhem next?
Yeah, Mayhem's got the 2 seed.
I think Mayhem.
Here's where they might pick Paris because they beat them 3-0 a couple of weeks back.
That was so many weeks ago, though. Wasn't that 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
It almost seems like a totally.
But that's where, okay, so how I said in the first round that you don't want to big up the match because you're beating like a low team. Here's where I think you could
4
big
weeks
up.
ago.
Here's where I think you could big up the confidence of Florida Mayhem by saying, we 3-0 with Paris Eternal. We know we can beat them. Let's pick them. We're going to destroy them. But if you pick like the Fuel and stuff, that's when you get into hesitation where you're like, how do we handle the case tracer? We go up against the Rain. They just randomly pop off with Baby Bay and stuff. Eternal, we've beaten in the past. We know how to take them down.
I think
that's when you can big up players.
I think the Rain is the least scary of the games almost.
I agree. I agree. Weirdly, the Rain is the least scary because Decay and Doha have that pop-off potential. How weird is that we're even saying
The Fusion would definitely take the Dallas Fuel.
Yeah, because they
And
don't give
then,
a fuck. They're just gonna roll over.
And then
like some...
the Eternal would take Valiant would take Paris.
the
It's fine.
the only match here, the only matches in this bracket that I'm confident we've got right are Eternal against the Justice and Valiant against Eternal. I
Yeah.
feel like those are the only situations.
We all
They're gonna
agree, I think,
definitely
that the Shock and the Mayhem would win.
I think Mayhem
I'm
are
not
the
too sure about that
favorites, but
matchup.
I'm not. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I
okay.
don't know for sure.
Well, you-
Mayhem
for the
haven't
sake of
played
this,
against a
would
top
you-
team in a while.
For the sake of this, would you pick them?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure about the Shock and the Fusion. I'm sure about that.
I think
I'm
Paris
pretty
beats
sure about
Valiant.
Paris.
I think Paris would beat the Valiant.
That could be a close game, but I think Eternal got it. Yeah.
Would you predict any upsets in the semis? Would you predict like I think it would be Shock Fusion. But anybody?
Yeah.
I mean, Eternal literally is an upset, right? Because Valiant is the higher seeded team.
Well, no, I'm saying like in a Shock Paris and Fusion Florida matchup.
No.
So who would you take? Shock, obviously. Would you take?
I don't know whether that's obvious though. Honestly, Paris have been
Get off
really
it.
good in certain metas. Okay, so Johnny, if it comes down to a May McCree meta like it was at the beginning of the league,
Yeah.
it's
a 50-50
I don't know.
I picked the
it's a bit
Shock.
of a 50-50.
Because I think they're just going to speed boost in, play the aggression composition that they like doing, and they're going to put Rascal on the May and just go in. I think Shock has the highest peak potential of any team in the league.
I would agree with Johnny. I would take the Shock. Is there any interest in Mayhem over Philly?
If this was hero pools, I could see a case in where Paris finds the better composition, finds the better playstyle, and beat the Shock. But no hero pools enables teams to play what they are the most comfortable with and what they shine with. And Shock, when Shock plays with what they're comfortable with and play the way they want to, they're the best team in the league.
Yeah.
I don't care about Shanghai. When Shock can play the way they want to, they're insane.
Philly's had a bunch of close games lately. Is there a way that the Mayhem could upset them?
I think it's unlikely. I think the Fusion would actually enjoy playing against the Mayhem because they have them outclassed on most roles, and I think that they've got better team coordination than them as well. I don't see as I think the Mayhem are a good team, and I think they keep getting better, and they should be respected. But I don't think they have as much upset potential as maybe some of the even weaker teams. And again, it's like hero pools, Fusion aren't going to be uncomfortable.
Right.
I think they're pretty solid. I think we're going to see a Shock Fusion final.
Would anybody take what's your take in this one?
I've said for a while that if the Shock are playing in a meta that they like if they have a good grasp on the meta, and if it's anything fast-paced, I think the Shock win this game. I think the Shock are the best team in North America right now, even though the evidence doesn't suggest it. It suggests Philadelphia. I think that Philly have had some close games, and they are much more reliant on their individual skill rather than their.
This game would scare the shit out of me, though, if I was the Shock. Because if, let's say it's May McCree, you're having Aunts play McCree in a finals, like, where he hasn't had a ton of big game experience against Carpe.
Yeah.
That could be it.
And I give Ivy the benefit over Rascal even in that May mirror as well. But
really?
I'm not even
That's
sure.
hard.
Yeah, I think Ivy's been really, really good on the May.
I think if Fusion wants to win this game, they can't beat Shock at their own game. And that's where the versatility and adaptation comes in from the from the Fusion. Yeah. And I've been so impressed by the Fusion's ability all year to adapt mid-game and have Fury adapt to multiple different off-tanks, to have Ivy, Hisu, EQO. I think if Fusion wants to win this match, they show many different looks throughout the series and get a compositional advantage and abuse that fact. But I don't think they can beat Shock at their own game.
Right.
Yeah.
Bren, do you think Philly could beat the Shock?
I think there's a universe.
Are we in that universe?
What percentage would you give it?
I would give it.
Is this like a 60-40 Shock?
I think it's like a 55-45.
Yeah,
I think it's a 50-50.
It's close. It's so close.
I think it's a little bit more one-sided to the Shock. I think it's 65.
35.
Whatever the opposite of that is.
Bren can't do the math.
I honestly can't wait if we get to see
if we get this matchup
versus Super. That would be
that would be great actually.
I want to see this match bad.
That's gonna be some pogger shit.
We keep zooming in further and further to increase the intensity of the games.
Well, what do you think about the bracket we created? Earlier, then you've got Fusion. Yeah, I would agree with this. Yeah, quite reasonable.
Well, what's your match to look out for then in there, Bren? What do you? If you had to pick one upset that we didn't pick, where would you pick it?
Outlaws over the Fuel, Uprising over Gladiators.
For a second there, I thought you said Gladiators over the Shock, and I was just.
Are we going to create Bren's perfect bracket? Okay,
Well,
Shock would not pick Gladiators.
You have to predict who gets picked in the first place.
I think Shock would pick. Oh God, this is all over the place. Sorry, Kurt. I think the Shock would. Wait, is that the Shock? Yeah, who would the Shock pick? Hold on,
My God, Bren, we've already gone and done this.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I want to. I actually want to talk to you about.
Menu at a restaurant.
I want to talk to you about the next snack on my list. I forgot to bust it out. A boy Pawang. Chichacorn.
Oh, it's delicious. That's incredible. That's one of my favorite snacks.
This
we got it in this a tail box, and it's delicious.
Is a Philippine snack. It says on the back, by Pinoy. That is excellent. Little fried fried corn.
Is it corn? I thought it was like chickpeas or something.
It's corn. Fried corn with garlic on it. Lovely. Wow. I'll give that one a 9 out of 10. Anyway.
Do we only have Bren's player of the week left?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got power rankings as well, actually.
No, freak off.
No power rankings.
Power rankings are basically the same as predictions when you have a tournament bracket,
I think
right?
let's take a look at them, and I think it'll be some easy adjustments.
I got places to be, Brennan Hook.
Let's do Bren's player of the week.
I think if we look at the power rankings, it'll be easy to do.
Let's see.
Yeah, let's see them there.
I think Seoul needs to be moved down.
Yeah, move Gladiators down.
I think Hangzhou up.
Put Gladiators in the Chengdu zone.
No, not in the
No.
zone.
Where the hell do you put Gladiators?
I would put them below the. I mean, maybe right there.
Yeah, right there seems all right actually.
I put Boston ahead of the Justice.
Vancouver to the bottom. Vancouver to the
bottom. I think the Justice are better than Boston, though. I think the one win over the Gladiators does not.
That looks about right.
Yeah. Do you put Houston over Toronto?
Where's the Dallas Fuel? Oh, there they are. Get them down.
No. Oh, yeah. Actually, they did play really badly recently.
Yeah, right there.
That's fine.
Yep.
Do you put Houston over Toronto or no? I think so.
Do you?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think
agree
Houston got slammed by Atlanta recently, who we've got low down, and Toronto had good games against the Shock and the Valley.
Okay, we're split 2-2. Kurt makes the final call.
You fucking fanboy.
Thank you, Kurt.
What about the Asian region?
Yeah, the Asian bracket.
Shanghai,
Hangzhou up.
London in the bottom.
I think London at the bottom.
Yeah.
Hangzhou underneath New York.
Yeah, Hangzhou underneath New York, I would agree with.
New York number 2.
Well, if we're assuming that Nero isn't playing, yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
And I would put Chengdu over Seoul.
But yeah, I mean it's impossible to rate Seoul because they're either dominating everybody or losing to everybody. So
No. Well,
I mean, honestly, they could go in their own little zone.
but people are going to be like, "Where's Seoul?" when this eventually gets screenshot. I'm content with this.
Yeah,
We
that seems okay.
sped run the power ranking.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Bren's player of the week.
My player of the week, due to popular demand, play the clip, Kurt.
Where's the? Oh, there it is.
Bren's player of the week. Due to popular demand, my player of the week is none other than Jacob Lyon. Play the images. Roll the tape. Here's Jake. Someone made a nice little scoreboard for him. Jake, for his solo casting efforts, Josh, me and you were watching this live.
I was dying.
Dude.
The best is when they put Mitch in for 2 seconds and he had the same issue that ZP had, and then they just took him away. Like, he just came in like an echo of the void and then just Yo, Jake fucking brought the heat though with the solo cast.
He did. I
He
was
popping off.
I was amazed at the fact that when most people solo cast, they
go slower.
They go slower and they repeat the same pacing that you would have in a normal cast, where you have fast play-by-play moments and then slower analysis. Jake decides, fuck that. And just starts spinning for 11 minutes, was just talking at the same pace over and over and over again. I don't understand how this man thinks of enough things to say. He reaches the end of a sentence, he has another sentence right there. His brain works in a different way.
It was really impressive to see him do that.
I asked Jake, how did you do it? And he said, I learned it in debate in college.
Yeah, I can totally believe that, actually.
It's a style of speaking where you make your sentence and you talk, and you take a short little breath, and then you go again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you take it's short breaths in between to give him the sustenance. I grilled him and asked him, have you ever been to Northern Australia? Because I thought he was doing a circular breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. But no, he wasn't.
He can't play the didgeridoo.
He cannot play the didgeridoo. Pretty insane stuff. He spoke... How many words per minute? 182 words per minute for 11 minutes straight.
No, I doubt that. There's I heavily doubt that.
That's
There's
not
no way
that
he
fast.
said 3 words a second.
That's not really that fast. If you think about how quickly you normally talk, in that sentence, what was I saying? Like 4 words per minute or something? 4 words per second? Like, you think about the sentence structure, it's the pauses that introduce slower words per minute. Like in the sentence that I just spoke there, where I'm pausing in between words. But if you have already thought of the sentence that you want to play, and you say like I'm looking at my Twitch chat because it's just on the other screen. This is me right now. I've been fucking mentally boomed so hard, it's gone 180 in the other direction. I've fucking broken through my personal limits. I'm 180 headshot and sombras. Like that, if you already have the words prepped, you can speak really fast. Like that's not an incredible pace. But what was so impressive is that he had the words prepped. Like how is he thinking of the words to say them? It
was coherent.
Yeah,
it was coherent and made sense, and it was very fast. And he was doing it just thrown into it, you know? A lot of respect
I loved
for Jake.
his throws, though. When he was getting cues from the producer, it was like God was inserting words into his head. Because he would pause for a second, and he'd look at the camera, and then he'd be like, okay, now we're going to talk about something else. He'd just go on with whatever he's talking about, because he was filling time for the interview. So he was getting cues in his ear for the interview, and then he'd just come up with another topic.
Yeah, well, that was my player of the week.
Yeah, no, that's a good choice. Sometimes your player of the week is a waste of time. This time, though, it was a good choice.
Thanks. Yeah, let me know in the comments if we should get rid of Matt.
Yeah. let us know. And then
people enjoyed having Custer on last week because and I quote, he had more Papega takes than Reinforce. So I feel like that's a compliment for you.
You know
Johnny?
what I love about our fan base is we bring on the pros, and then the pros have the Papega takes, but the 3 of us are just we're the voices that you should listen to. Listen to us.
I think that says more about our viewers than you guys.
That's what I just said.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 34. This has been Tony Baloney. Thank you for visiting my New York Baloney store. And I'm going to go stream on twitch.tv/Bren. I'm going to play some League of Legends late at night. Play some iron placements. Thank you for watching.